Welcome to today's Black Fleet Network webinar on clean energy. My name is Sharon Dudley Parham, and I'm here with Rosalind Ward Nelson, representing the BFN Clean Energy Task Force team. We are thrilled to have you join us as we explore this important topic together. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available online after the session, so you can revisit it at any time or share this discussion with others who might also find it valuable. Now, before we begin, let's go over a few guidelines to ensure that today's webinar runs smoothly and remains an engaging and productive experience for everyone. First, we kindly ask all attendees to remain muted during the discussion. This helps minimize background noise and ensures that everyone can focus on the content being presented. Second, while we welcome your enthusiasm and questions, we ask that you hold all questions until the end of the session. There will be a designated Q&A period where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions live or submit them via the chat feature. Please locate that feature on your screen. There, you will also find a link to ask questions or provide comments after the meeting. Third, please use the chat function respectfully. Feel free to share thoughts or comments related to the topic, but please refrain from sharing unrelated links or engaging in off-topic discussions. Finally, we are committed to creating a respectful and inclusive environment. Please ensure that your contributions, both spoken and written, reflect this commitment. Any inappropriate language or behavior will result in immediate removal from the webinar.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see all of you. I would like to welcome you all to Black Fleet Network's webinar on biodiesel, entitled Biodiesel, Fact, Fiction, and Future. I am LP Monroe, the Acting Fleet Manager for Prince George's County Fleet Division. And with us today, we have three amazing, intelligent, and subject matter experts on biodiesel. First up, we have Mr. Tim Fitzgerald. He is the Fleet Director of DPWT for the City of Atlanta. Next, we have Alrik Lunsford, who serves as the Senior Clean Transportation for the North Carolina Energy Center, and also serves as the Director of Piedmont and Coastal North Carolina Clean Communities. Say that 5 times fast. Oof, tongue twister. Next, also, we have Colin Huwyler, who is the founder and president of Optimus Technology. So we have before you today a very engaging and exciting webinar on biodiesel. And before we get into the webinar and we start poking the brains of our illustrious panel here, let's first create a working application or working definition of biodiesel. So biodiesel is a renewable, biodegradable, alternative fuel produced through a process called transesterification from feedstocks such as vegetable oils, soybean oil, vegetable oil, et cetera, animal fats, and recycled cooking greases. Biodiesel is created by chemically reacting to the oils and or fats with an alcohol. So that is our current working application, but our subject matter experts may and probably will expand on this definition. So before we again also get started on, we also want to explore why is biodiesel important to government fleets? Biodiesel may be something that many people have thought to explore, but have never really thought about it because what really is it? How could it impact them and what really is the importance of it? We hear about it all the time. Biodiesel is an alternative fuel that helps government fleets to diversify their fuel source. So in essence, you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket. It also opens government fleets up to other funding sources to maximize their overall budget. So fuel sources alternatives such as biodiesel are important. They can be of benefit. And also, by the way, they help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So Is everyone feeling comfortable? Is everyone ready? I think we are. Colin, are you ready? Alrik, are you ready? Mr. Fitzgerald, I know you're ready, right? Get excited. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So I gave a working application or definition for biodiesel. And I'm hoping, Colin, that you can expand on the definition that I gave. So, for all the folks here that have joined us, what really is biodiesel?
Yeah, so biodiesel, as you had mentioned, is it's a replacement diesel fuel. It is derived from things like oils and fats, and one of the really great benefits of biodiesel is that the sources of feedstock, which is the base product that biodiesel can be made from, are really endless. And so there's a lot of market applications. There's a lot of applicability, whether it's the used cooking oils, whether it's byproducts from agricultural oils, or animal fats. Anything that's a triglyceride molecule can be converted into biodiesel. And biodiesel has a wide range of applicability. It's been commercially available since the 90s, so it's a well-known, established fuel with billions of gallons that are produced annually. But it has flexibility to be blended into traditional diesel. So a lot of application of biodiesel we see blended into traditional diesel fuel. So that could be designated in the form of a BX. So a B5 would be 5% biodiesel mixed with 95% petroleum diesel, all the way up to a B100, which would be a pure biodiesel. Once you get above generally the B20, so 20% biodiesel, 80% petroleum diesel level, there's some operational conditions and engine considerations that are necessary to utilize the fuel above that 20% blend. And so, one of the things that we focus on is building the technology for engines to be able to be compatible with the 100% biodiesel blend. But fleets certainly can deploy anything in that range of low blends to high blends and achieve a pretty dramatic carbon reduction. That 100% biodiesel allows a fleet to achieve anywhere from an 85 to a 95% CO2 reduction, and also for government fleets specifically, helps them to meet their EPACT, the EPA compliance requirements for alternative fuel deployment.
Thank you for that well-defined and clarified definition. That's amazing. And thank you for also breaking out the different types of biodiesel that is available to fleets. And also thank you for just dispelling the myth that this is not something new. This has been around since the 90s. So this is something that's well known to the fuel industry. In essence, biodiesel is considered to be it's a Gen Z type of fuel, right? So it's been around for a while. Gen Z is now in the workforce, and so is biodiesel. So get excited. There's a commonality there. So I'm going to also ask Tim, you are the director of DPWT for the city of Atlanta. So can you explain why should government fleets, public fleets such as government and also private entities consider biodiesel?
Well, if I may, and good morning, everyone. In talking about biodiesel is one of those things where if you're concerned about the safety, about the understanding of the whole person and using an alternative, biodiesel may be just for you. Of course, it's not a one size fits all, but I've been working with Optimus on several of the DERA grants as well. Biodiesel lends itself to the whole person. For instance, we have people in public works who work behind collections vehicles. In other words, trash trucks, receptacles, that sort of thing. That diesel is spewing out every day, okay, an unclean fuel. If you will, when we put that and implemented this in Washington, D.C., we made sure that we studied the whole person from school buses all the way back to the collections trucks. And when we implemented them and we worked with them on the grant side, we first of all, we saw no degradation in the units themselves. Okay, I want to make that very clear because most people look at the degradation as something that they don't want to have to deal with, whether we're looking at the filters and the gelling, or whether we're looking at the whole transportation ring in terms of the viability of this product in the new world that we're in. Biodiesel has become a champion in the city of Washington, D.C. And we're looking here in the city of Atlanta to implement that very same crisp understanding for the betterment of our employees, our members, as well as the city as a whole, because that's our future. We have to be concerned about that. Biodiesel has helped, has made sure that we've been following it. Our folks know how to work on the units. We understand the blend. We're using B100 in DC. We went from B20 to B100 in the city of Washington DC, and it hasn't been any issues at all with what we've done. So from DC Water to the Department of Public Works in Washington DC, and the usage of it has expanded. I wish we could do an Odyssey Day like we used to in the old days, where we displayed these trucks down on our mall and made sure that all the senators and the congressmen got a chance to take a look at the types of things that we're doing to make our environment better and full. I think that what we have to do also, and I would employ most of you fleet managers to take the risk to make our environment better, take the risk to make our citizens better, our children better, and let's employ them. And this is, again, the Gen Z look. So we've got to make it better all the way around.
Thank you. I want to also kick this to Alrik and also ask an expanding question. So Alrik, same to you. Why should government fleets consider biodiesel as an alternative fuel source? But then also, because you lend a lot of resources to both private and public fleets, are there resources that you can perhaps speak of, that help guide, fleets into implementing alternative fuels such as biodiesel?
Well, thank you for posing this question, LP. And first, let me start by saying that as a state agency working for the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center, we definitely are all about a all hands on deck approach, not a one size method fits all, as Tim mentioned. And so we definitely like to educate government entities, state entities, as well as the public about the benefits of all the different alternative fuels, and not offering any type of bias over one. And then also, as a Clean Cities and Communities chapter, also all about looking at not relying on foreign oil dependence, but looking at domestic to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions, as well as helping out with environmental sustainability at large. And so with that being said, I think that biodiesel has its benefits, like in terms of its cost affordability. Colin and Tim both mentioned this in terms of with fleets. Basically, you can be able to pair it with the specific blend types, whatever you're looking for, as well as you can be able to run it in light, medium, and heavy duty applications. And it cuts down on the soot, the tailpipe emissions, as well as in terms of the reduction of greenhouse gases and CO2. With the B20, for example, you're looking at relatively 15% CO2 reduction. Getting into the B100, even higher. And so if anyone is looking for resources, I definitely recommend looking at the Clean Cities and Communities in general, their website, as well as looking at obviously Clean Fuels Alliance America. They have excellent resources, and Colin can speak more to that. Also looking at the Alternative Fuel Data Center and the fueling provider locations and that map locator that gives people a good idea of where their distributors, their providers are, and where they can actually be able to identify the closest station and what particular lens those stations use. And then also looking at the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center as a resource. We do a number of things, like in terms of our clean transportation team, cleantransportation.org, which is it's a long website for me to be able to remember. But if you Google it, it should come up. It talks about like all the services that we provide, like in terms of looking at internal as well as external links. And then you can look at learnaboutevs.org that talks about our event page as well. And so number of different resources out there, as well as Work Truck. So provided a few, and just Google away for a whole lot more.
Thank you for providing those resources and giving an expanded answer. We appreciate that. I'm going to kick it back to you, Colin. So one other question that we often hear is a question about performance, right? So is there a difference in the performance between traditional diesel and biodiesel?
Yeah, so generally, I'd say this is a myth. So biodiesel is not the same exact molecule as diesel, so there are some variances, there are some differences. One of the things that is often cited is that biodiesel has about 7 to 9% less BTU per gallon. So the energy content of the fuel is slightly lower than that of traditional diesel. But as most fleets know, diesel fuel is dynamic. So a winter blend where you've got more kerosene or more number one fuel has a lower energy content. So the energy content of biodiesel versus the winter blend of diesel is going to be much closer. The other thing is energy content is not the only indicator of performance for the fuel. So biodiesel has a much higher cetane rating than traditional diesel. So traditional diesels are on average in the 40 to 42, 43 range. And cetane for diesel, it's not exactly the same thing, but is kind of similar to what you'd think of like an octane for gasoline. So it's the measure of combustibility. So it's the combustion index for the fuel. And diesel sits roughly, we'll call it 40 cetane. Biodiesel actually has a much higher cetane, so it's about 50 cetane, generally speaking, on average. So even though biodiesel has a slightly lower energy content, the ability to extract that energy through the combustion process is higher for biodiesel. So you can get more of that energy per gallon extracted from the fuel itself. And biodiesel, because it's made from plants and fats and oils, it actually, the combustion process itself reduces the soot generation, that black smoke that people typically associate with older diesels. It reduces that soot emission value by anywhere from 50 to 70%. So there's a pretty substantial performance benefit that's achieved by reducing those soot emissions, particularly on newer engines that have filters that trap all that soot. So, most diesel vehicles that are manufactured now have what's called a diesel particulate filter, and it's a ceramic filter that captures that black soot emissions. Well, with biodiesel, because there's a much lower soot generation, that filter stays cleaner for longer, and it requires the engine to do less work to complete the same amount of, or less fuel to complete the same amount of work. And so although the common myth is that biodiesel has lower energy content, so the performance is going to be lower, what happens in reality is the cetane value being higher for biodiesel and the reduction in soot emissions actually allow biodiesel to be pretty much on par with diesel fuel in terms of power, performance, and fuel economy. We did a 1.3 million mile study with ADM Trucking, so large global commodities company, but they run a fleet of 500 over-the-road trucks. And we did a study with them over 1.3 million miles, where we actually demonstrated a slight improvement in fuel economy compared to traditional diesel. We monitored 5 diesel vehicles and 5 vehicles that were operating on our technology with 100% biodiesel, and we saw about a 1.5 to 2% improvement in fuel economy. So I think, overall, in addition to just the pure performance from biodiesel itself, one of the things, and I'll let Tim kind of follow up here and touch on it, because he alluded to it earlier, the fuel itself, because of the feedstocks that it's made from, vegetable oils and animal fats, it's a much safer fuel to handle, to service on the vehicle. Diesel fuel is a known carcinogen. Biodiesel is less toxic than table salt. So when the mechanics have to change filters, when they're servicing the vehicle, they get that fuel on their hands. It's biodegradable, it's non-toxic, versus traditional diesel, which is a carcinogenic. So in addition to the vehicle performance benefits, there's also performance benefits from a health and safety standpoint.
Thank you. So I want to just touch real quick and just say the information that you are providing, Alrik, Tim, and Colin, is truly beneficial to a lot of fleets. And what you're basically sharing is just what the facts are about biodiesel, right? So as we are just talking about the facts, let's kind of dispel some of the myths. And Colin, you touched on that word, and thank you, because that's a smooth transition to our next segment, right? The fiction about biodiesel. So real quick, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions and shoot it off to you all, and you just say fact or fiction, and then just tell me why, if you don't mind. Okay, so the first, is it true that biodiesel is always significantly more expensive or harder to procure for government fleets compared to traditional fuels? And I'm going to kick it off to Tim.
Myth. Total
Okay,
myth.
tell us why.
And the reason why is because when you do a comparison overall and your usage, I would suggest that you enter into a test with one of your companies, whether it be Optimus, which is the premier leader in it, that you test it over time, as he did with ADM, right? And make sure that you understand that the protocols inside of what you're doing, I won't get into the science of it, but I will just say, look at the comparison as it is 1-to-1. And in your type of units, we did from dump trucks to jetbacks, okay? And we saw no issues anywhere down the line. The mechanics were trained on what to do, and they could do it themselves in terms of the changeouts. The operators knew what they were going to do. And it actually was an improvement in the attitude of them operating such vehicles, because they knew it was better for them overall. Complete myth in terms of what we're doing. And we have to dispel those myths, because in the old days, some of the filters were gel, and we didn't really know what we were doing, okay, in terms of how to apply certain service levels in a vehicle like this. So as the DERA began to grow, the diesel emissions reduction act, then it became more viable for everyone to use and to move through the sequence of using this fuel and using it in a way where it was beneficial. I think that, again, if we have our minds and our heads on improving what we're putting out as products to our members and our public, we have to dispel these myths. And I think this is one way to do it.
Thank you. All right, so Alrik, fact, fiction, myth, or mythbuster here. Okay, is it true that biodiesel comes from outside the United States, which makes it more expensive than traditional fuel.
That's a fiction, totally false. Biodiesel is manufactured domestically, which is a great benefit in terms of helping out with source and the local economy. Farmers, I already said it's very cost effective, and in general, its characteristics are very similar to petroleum diesel or diesel, and can be used in those that application.
Awesome. Thank you for dispelling that myth. All right, the last question about about the fictional or the myths about biodiesel. I'm going to kick this off to Colin. All right, so does biodiesel cause engine knocking or other vehicle breakdowns? And does biodiesel reduce the vehicle's fuel economy? Is that a myth or is that fact?
Yeah, I'd say both of those are myths. Again, the fuel economy we touched on a little bit earlier, and the fuel economy is going to be specific to the application. So stop applications are going to see substantial benefit on the soot emission reductions. So you're gonna see a benefit with the after treatment systems, which are going to help improve the fuel economy there.
Mhm.
And when you look at longer regional or over the road type of operations that are more steady state, you're going to see you'll kind of see a little bit of that fuel economy differential differently than you would in a start-stop application, but you're going to get the benefit of the higher cetane rating, and as it pertains to engine knocking or things like that, that's not that's not an issue with biodiesel. Biodiesel as a fuel product is roughly 30 to 40 times more lubricating than a molecule of traditional diesel. And the modern diesel engines have such tight tolerances. They're machined with such precision and manufactured with such precision that they actually utilize the fuel to lubricate the fuel pumps, the injectors, and the engine wetted components. And so with biodiesel, you'll see much higher lubricity, much better wearing of those metal components because of the enhanced lubricity. And knocking, I feel like that typically people associate that with engine noise and whatnot. There was a study that was done in Europe that actually engines that are operating on high blends of biodiesel actually emit lower decibels of noise from the engine itself. So as you look at it in a kind of quantified scientific manner, the engines themselves are actually quieter operating on biodiesel than their traditional diesel counterpart.
So as you all have just dispelled the myths about biodiesel, what does bring to the forefront of my mind is that on the parts and maintenance side for shop operations, this actually reduced costs, right? So for Tim and myself, as we are, working in fleet and we're administrating and looking at, overall budgets and tighter budget constraints, it makes sense for a government fleet to start to transition to an alternative fuel such as biodiesel, because in the long run, we're saving on parts, we're saving on maintenance, and we're also saving on labor time. And we're also investing in our employees because, as you said, biodiesel is not carcinogenic, and we don't want that for our employees. We want our guys and gals to stick around for a very long time. So I don't know about anybody else that's in attendance, but I mean, Prince George's County already has biodiesel, but I think we need to do a little bit more based off of what you guys have talked about. Thank you for that. So let's talk about the future of biodiesel, because I hear this a lot. Everyone just basically says, I have green burnout, right? The push for EVs, the push for renewable diesel, propane. Now there's hydrogen. I'm burnt out. right? Now you're talking about biodiesel. Like my brain is fried, right? So how does biodiesel stack up to all of these other alternative fuels? So let's talk about the future. And I'm going to kick this off to Alrik because you are in the hub of it. You see all the studies. With the push for innovative electric vehicles, how does biodiesel, in your opinion, remain relevant in the field of alternative fuels?
So good question, LP. So like as Colin already stated, in the early 90s, biodiesel and renewables in general were very prevalent. And then I think with the push of electrification, kind of got moved to the forefront. But now it seems like biodiesel and renewables in general are being brought back in as being sexy, lack of a better word. Uh, so it seems like during the pandemic, and then up to modern times, when you had electrification, and then people were obviously looking at hydrogen as application now. In terms of electrification, even though supply chain constraints have somewhat or supposedly eased, you still have other things that come into play, like politics, which I won't get too much into. And then with the issue of hydrogen is definitely something that's going to be looked at in terms of the future, but it has to be looked at in terms of scalability and then its availability, like in terms of where it is and in terms of regional areas and how it can be transported, thus forth. And so with biodiesel, as both panelists have mentioned, is very easily accessible. It's with it being like the blend of the animal and vegetable fat, soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, all the different uses and blends, you can be able to recycle a lot of what you already have. And so it cuts down on basically like anything like in terms of if you're looking at equipment, it's very low maintenance. Life cycle, it helps out with the cost availability for fleets and operating costs in general. And so I see it going nothing but I see the trajectory rising. I forgot the statistics, but basically I think with soybean oil production alone or soybeans in general, like bushels are in the millions. And Colin can probably speak to this more, but yeah, with the increase in production of soybeans and other vegetables and crops, you're going to see a rise in the use of biodiesels, particularly, but renewable fuels in general.
Thank you. That was very informative. Tim, same question.
I would say that there's no one size fits all. Okay. And where some things may work in your particular fleet, they may not work in others. As I stated earlier, I believe what you have to do is look at the programs that you're trying to run and what the achievables are inside the programs that you have. You've got to size up what you're doing and make sure that you understand that here's a program that can actually use biodiesel. For instance, I'll give you an example. Route managers out on collections vehicles, okay? They can go in certain neighborhoods and make sure that the GVWR, the turning ratios, and all of that can fit on the back of whether you're using a 25 yarder or 11 yarder or what have you. The program has to fit the use and the need, okay? And you have to be able to be adaptable inside of it all. Where there's some electric appliances that work, where there's some CNG appliances that may work in others. I would say that I would highly encourage us to look at the biodiesel because in going in cities where there are tight neighborhoods, and you're emitting, okay, fuels and emitting exhaust, you have to be mindful in small concentrated areas what you're emitting into the air because it goes right into the lungs of our children. Asthma is the number one issue that we have right now in air quality. And I think it's when you're doing regular diesel, it contributes to the issues that we have in these small infrastructure spaces. When you're not conscious of what's going on, you're not only hurting your worker, but you're hurting your customer. And I think that it's a win-win when you can show that you're actually in the space of clean energy, from Clean Fuels Alliance, as Alex mentioned, and what Colin had mentioned before, to all the others. It makes a difference when they see you out in front of the issue.
Thank you. Talking about the human impact, especially when we're looking at neighborhoods and who we serve, right? That's important. And sometimes we can get so bogged down in the inertia of our fleets and our roles that we forget the greater impact in who we serve, right? We're all serving someone. And for a lot of government fleets, we serve our local counties and municipalities. So when for DPWT, when these trucks go out and they go out to the community and they're emitting harmful toxins, that does impact, the citizens of the neighborhood that you're trying to take care of. You're taking care of them by removing debris and, using VACCONs and doing, inlet maintenance. But on the other side, you could be causing harm because the emissions from the vehicles that you're utilizing are emitting, harmful greenhouse gas emissions, and we don't want that. So thank you for bringing everything around to full picture and helping us to see the expanded, impact of our operations as fleet administrators. That's really important. Okay, so Colin and Alrik, we have a couple more minutes, and I'm going to kick this off to the two of you. Where do you see biodiesel in the next 5 to 10 years? And how can fleets benefit from the adoption of biodiesel in the future? Either or, do we want me to just pick someone?
Draw straws.
All right, Alrik, since you spoke last, you're up.
So I think I touched on it previously, but I mean, I think that it's nothing but up for biodiesel. And as Tim and Colin have both pointed out, for our agency, we're all about improving air quality. And then so with governments and then the public, whatever works best in terms of looking towards the future, like in terms of definitely helping out with things that decrease asthma, decrease other breathing problems, things that are helping out with educational programs with the youth, as well as looking at things that may help out with job creation with local source economy. I think that biodiesel is and the use of biodiesel is definitely a win. And then obviously from operational costs, we've already discussed how you can see the benefits. Like it's very, very little cost investment, like in terms of with the equipment, whether it's with the pipelines or the underground storage tanks, the use of it in the vehicle. And so when you're looking at it, I mean, it's a very good use case for a lot of different scenarios.
Awesome. Colin?
Yeah, I think the future is certainly bright for biodiesel. More and more, you have engine manufacturers and vehicle manufacturers leaning into a diversity of solutions for helping fleets to meet their targets, whether it's emission reduction goals, carbon reduction goals. Biodiesel is domestically manufactured and produced, so there's energy security goals that are tied. Biodiesel really checks almost all the boxes as it pertains to why fleets and how fleets can deploy within their operations. And from a Alrik and we've talked a little bit about it, electric, hydrogen, typically there won't be a single strategy for a fleet. It's risk diversification, it is duty cycle, it's operational conditions, it's vehicle availability. And so there's a broad mix of technologies that are going to be suitable and that fleets need to deploy. I think where biodiesel really shines is in the medium and the heavy duty space, where the comparable electric vehicles may be, 2, 3, 4 times the price of a traditional diesel vehicle. And, as municipalities, part of your duty and part of the obligation is to be fiscally responsible with the funds that taxpayers have entrusted you with. And so, I think biodiesel, where I see that the large growth will continue to be in the medium and the heavy duty space, where biodiesel is a near-term deployable strategy to help reduce carbon emissions, improve local air quality, and to do so at a relatively low cost, because it is a liquid fuel. It's ubiquitous in terms of its availability across the country. And so, I think just continuing to see uptake and demand for this low carbon fuel that allows fleets to meet their targets, whether again they're emission or energy security related, and to do so in a cost-effective, very efficient manner. I think we'll just continue to see improved growth and continued demand for the fuel.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Alrik. So we're winding down, and I just want to open it up. Anyone have any questions? I know I have a couple, but does anyone have any questions? Let's open it up to the chat. Operators are able to perhaps post some of the questions. That way I can see them. That would be great. Okay, so I see 2 questions coming in. So the first question is, what communities have you held up as inspirations in diversified use of alternative fuels? And then there's a second part. And what were some of their most admirable applications? So I'm going to kick that off to you, Alrik, because you work with a lot of different municipalities and communities, both in North Carolina and abroad. So what have you seen?
So there's quite a few that we worked with, and none are like really sticking out off the top of my head. So I mean, I'm just gonna, I guess, give a shout out to like Eastern North Carolina in general, as well as Central North Carolina, which coincidentally enough are the territories that we service with the Piedmont and coastal NC Clean communities. But basically, you have you have East Carolina University for one. While they don't use biodiesel, they are using natural gas. They are using propane, and then you also have people in the east as well as Parker Gas. You have Alliance Auto Gas that operates pretty much statewide. You have Piedmont Natural Gas as well, subsidiary of Duke Energy. So North Carolina is kind of like the hub of a lot of the different renewables, all of which we work with. You have Thompson Auto Gas as well. The list can kind of go on and on that have helped out with the applications of alternative fuels. Trying to think of a biodiesel use case. It's not really coming to mind right now, but
if you don't mind,
yeah.
I would like to jump in, if you don't mind, and
Sure.
and highlight an inspiration. We have Tim Fitzgerald. Tim Fitzgerald has been my inspiration for a lot of the green initiatives and sustainability work that I'm doing here at Prince George's County. Tim has been an innovator in Washington, D.C. with, WSSC and also with water. He has introduced and partnered with, Maryland Soybean Board, United Soybean Association, introducing a lot of green bio-based products to his shop operations for the benefit of his staff, and also really championing biodiesel and also alternative fuels. He's been asked to speak at so many, Maryland and United Soybean Association events. And his work in just trying to really improve the quality of air and just overall life of his staff and the communities that he serves has been inspiring for me. And hopefully everyone has just really heard, the feedback that Tim has given. I mean, this is inspirational. I mean, this is really the work that he's doing really does drive home the importance of thinking outside the box and also reading the room and paying attention. So I'm holding up Tim, not because he's on the webinar, but he's a featured panelist, but because it's just fact. If someone would have asked me that outside of work, I would have said Tim anyway. So it's not because you're here, Tim. It's just because it's fact. Your work speaks for itself. So we're going to move on to the next question. And this is from Joanna Smith, who is my cohort at Prince George's County. Hello, Joanna. Joanna asks, how difficult and expensive was it to convert medium to heavy equipment from diesel to biodiesel? And I'm going to actually kick that off to Tim, but I want to say, Tim, there's no conversion, right? Because everything is plug and play. But can you speak to that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Colin was and myself, we were early adopters of biodiesel in the Washington D.C. area, and we were able to get this done through DERA, as a matter of fact, as well. So there was funding available through the federal government, and still is. DERA is still out there. Okay, and I think that what we have to do again, I will inspire us to say, do two things. Do an enterprise buy. Okay, what do I mean? Have an enterprise acquisition schedule with some of your surrounding jurisdictions, your partners in your areas, because what will happen is that it'll reduce the cost, one, of the purchase of vehicles. For instance, when we looked at it all, we said, wait a minute, if these different departments and these different organizations can look at, let's say, dump trucks, for instance, and look at those, and what can we all do together to buy them? We went to the manufacturer, talked to them about it, the OEM, and they said, well, if you're buying this much, then it will reduce the cost by this much, right? Now, that's one part of it. But then, if you can also couple that with the grant money, guess what? You have a win-win all the way around. And then in terms of adaptability and that, there is some work, but always include the training part inside of your offering. Because I always shout out to Colin, because Colin's team was on site training our techs, making sure they understood how it all worked. And then it was a mixture of not only just the technicians, but the operators and their departments.
Understood. So do you have to convert your equipment if you want to switch from diesel to biodiesel, or can you just keep purchasing what you've always purchased and just use biodiesel?
You can do it at the OEM. You can do it at the OEM, and that can happen again in partnership. So when you develop the partnership, the rules of engagement are basically the same. So the vehicle comes to you with everything already equipped, turnkey, ready to go. So and then you take it through the training pass, if you will, so that everyone understands how it operates. It's a great move in terms of it all. And I'll let Colin take the rest of it, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I think just to jump in there, to provide a little bit of clarity, up to a 20% blend of biodiesel. Generally most engines are compatible, and there's no additional equipment, there's no additional work that's necessary. But when you get above that 20% blend of biodiesel, that's really the work that we do here at Optimus. It's a fuel system technology that allows the engines to operate on 100% biodiesel without ever restricting the engine's ability to operate on traditional diesel. So it gives you, essentially that ability to upgrade the engines to operate in a flex fuel manner. And to what Tim's point was, many OEMs, when you do a new buy now, many OEMs will integrate our technology into that build process. Many of the dealerships offer it as an option. And for existing trucks or existing equipment that's already in the fleet, what we did in DC was had actually started and did this in Prince George County as well. upgraded existing trucks, or in the case of Prince George County, it was, buses, transit buses. We upgraded existing engines that were already in operation with our technology to allow them to be compatible up to that 100% biodiesel blend. But below a 20% blend, there's no modifications, no change whatsoever. It's just sourcing a different fuel. And as Alrik had mentioned, it's about a 15% greenhouse gas emission reduction benefit by switching to a B20, and then you get all the way up to that 85 to 95% when you switch to 100% biodiesel.
Awesome. So we have 1 minute left, and I'm going to break that 1 minute up into 30 seconds for the next question. So what do you see as a reasonable goal in the short term for biodiesel? And I'm going to pass that on to you, Alrik. 30 seconds.
I think a reasonable goal is to just look at meet fleets and people where they are. And after you do that assessment in terms of seeing whatever their fleet size is, possibly doing a right sizing, and also looking at the amount of vehicles that are in that fleet, and as well as the age range, you have to look at all those factors and then make consideration, but make the best choice from there.
Thank you. Same to you, Tim. 30 seconds.
I would say, Colin knows this, we took worst case scenario. Take your worst vehicles and then put them out on the lot. And if it all works in those, guess what? You know what it'll work in going forward. So you have to have a look in terms of what you're trying to accomplish program-wise. I think that's a great way to move, because now you know what your end result is going to be rather than you're guessing, if you will.
Okay, thank you. All right, Colin, I think we can fit in one more question, and you're going to close us out with the answer. 30 seconds. How does the U.S. compare to other countries in the use of biodiesels for fleet application?
Yeah, so I think that the U.S. is maybe not the leader, but certainly in the top five. We have a strong domestic biodiesel industry here, and so based on the sheer volume of diesel that we're consuming, the U.S. consumes substantial biodiesel on an annual basis. And again, I don't think we're the top user, but I think we're probably in the top three, I'd say.
Understood. Thank you. All right, everyone. That brings us to our conclusion for today's webinar, Biodiesel, Fact, Fiction, and Future. I have been your moderator, LP Monroe, again, Acting Fleet Manager for Prince George's County Fleet Division. Joining us and who were our subject matter experts were Colin Huwyler, Tim Fitzgerald, and Alrik Lunsford. I want to thank you all for attending and just being a great group of participants. If there are any more questions, please continue to put them in the chat. And what's going to happen is the moderator is going to grab that, and it's going to be emailed out to our panelists here, and they will reply back. BFN will reply back with the answer. Again, I'm LP Monroe. Colin, Tim, Alrik, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for that wealth, that fountain of knowledge. We truly appreciate it. And I'm hoping that you guys will make yourselves accessible for the rest of the participants here. If they have any questions or if they need any guidance, that you'll lend yourselves, maybe 30 minutes to an hour for a fleet administrator that is looking for guidance on how to get started with biodiesel. Thank you all. I'm going to turn this over to the moderators, and they're going to play a short video announcing upcoming events for Black Fleet Network and also resources. And again, they're going to close us out. Thank you all so much for attending. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all for your time and engagement today. If you're passionate about these topics and issues, and you would like to be a part of our growing community dedicated to advancing solutions in this space, we invite you to join us. As a member, you'll gain access to exclusive resources, networking opportunities, and updates on new advancements. Again, please visit us at blackfleetnetwork.org to sign up and be a part of the change. We've covered some incredible insights today, and we are so excited about the path forward. Remember, the conversation doesn't have to end here. If you have any further questions or comments that you'd like to share with us after today's session, please do so by sending them to the email address located in the chat box. Together, we can drive innovation and action in clean energy. Let's continue to collaborate and share ideas as we build a brighter, cleaner future. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate your interest and commitment to BFN's Clean Energy Task Force and topics. As you move forward with your day, please remember that we would love for you to continue to be a part of our discussions and efforts. Please have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you at our next session.